Delhi, India's capital and the center of its democratic institutions, has long been a gathering place where citizens come together to express their concerns. But on July 20th, a march driven largely by Gen Z protesters erupted into a standoff between young demonstrators demanding accountability and a state determined to maintain order on the streets. At the core of this movement is the youth-led Cockroach Janata Party, a satirical group that has evolved into a larger campaign after months of organizing and social media mobilization. Their focus on the education system and recent exam leaks has resonated with a generation increasingly disillusioned by alleged corruption, inequality, and institutional failures.
Barricades were torn down. Tear gas canisters were fired. Stones were hurled. And a movement that began with young citizens seeking answers snowballed into clashes between protesters and security officials.
If something's gone wrong and you feel like you can be at a position of not answering it, then that's incorrect. So I feel we should all gather here in order to at least solidify our decision.
The march, powered largely by Gen Z students and young professionals, rose out of mounting frustration. But its trigger point was the latest leak of questions for the NEET examination, which lakhs of medical aspirants undertake in India. Long ignored, sidelined and forced to bear the burden of institutional failure, thousands poured into the streets on the 20th of July, in numbers rarely seen in recent years. By early afternoon, several thousands had gathered in the city's core, as the police in riot gear moved in to contain the crowd. The call was for a march to the parliament on the same day that the monsoon session began. But with security risks in mind, the police denied permission for it. As the day proceeded, networks were cut and roads were blocked. Communication broke down and tensions escalated. As the police tried to push back demonstrators into a small designated protest enclosure near Jantar Mantar, anger, impatience and sloganeering grew. By late afternoon and early evening hours on Monday, the police used bait-in charges, tear gas and crowd control tactics. But the protesters pushed forward, determined to breach the cordons and make visible the urgency that had driven them into the streets in the first place. Many were heckled, struck with lathis and in some cases trampled amid the panic.
Now, as we know, since morning, thousands of people have been coming to the designated protest site, which is at the Jantar Mantar. But given the fact that there wasn't enough space over there, a lot of those protesters spilled over onto different parts of central Delhi. We're talking about Janpath, we're talking about Connaught Place, and also here at Raisina Road.
The Delhi police described the protesters as aggressive and unruly, saying more than 118 personnel, including senior officers, were injured and that demonstrators ignored repeated warnings and orders to disperse.
Delhi police appeals to all protesters to maintain peace. The public is advised not to believe or circulate rumors, misinformation, or unverified content through any platform. Citizens are requested to rely only on authentic sources of information and extend their cooperation to Delhi police in maintaining peace, harmony and public order.
But students at the protest and other eyewitnesses have a different story to tell. Many accuse the police and Rapid Action Force of using excessive and indiscriminate force against the demonstrators. Over 150 protesters were injured, many with wounds on their head, bait-in marks on their backs and some images showing injuries that look like pellet gun wounds. While police identifies individuals who injured security personnel, the courts are witnessing a showdown over demands for a probe into the allegations of police brutality. But the movement has been ongoing long before the 20th July march. In an effort to press for accountability, activist Sonam Wangchuk sat on a hunger strike. but tensions escalated on the 20th day of his fast when the police took him to Safdarjung Hospital against his will in an attempt to end the strike. Since then, the Cockroach Janata Party has demanded his release, along with accountability for a string of paper leaks, most notably the NEET exam leak. The group is also demanding 1 crore rupees in compensation for families of students who died by suicide after the leak. But at the center of their demands, which has emerged as the biggest sticking point for the government, is the resignation of Education Minister Dharmendra Pradhan. And the CJP has made it clear that the agitation will continue until its demands are addressed. As the monsoon session was underway on Monday, CJP leaders presented a memorandum pressing their key demands to Health and Welfare Minister JP Nadda. The next day, the political fallout widened after the opposition leaders gathered to protest outside Prime Minister Narendra Modi's residence. Leading them was Leader of Opposition Rahul Gandhi and Congress MP Priyanka Gandhi Vadra, along with the party President Mallikarjun Kharge. After hours, the police removed all the Congress leaders and detained them for hours before releasing the lawmakers later that night.
Now, more people are returning back to the protest site. Once again, the footfall is so high that the people present over here are spilling out of the designated area of protest, which is a small enclosure. And now all the roads that are leading up to this protest site at Jantar Mantar are once again full of people, also of volunteers and locals who are bringing food and water here for all the protesters. And so now the original demands of the Education Minister's resignation and also of a structural overhaul of India's education system, that has now been compounded by the unnecessary use of brutal force against people, which has made many people angry and come back to the streets and demand for justice and demand for accountability, and at the bottom line of it, demand to be heard.
As anger mounts on the ground and political corridors remain chaotic over the demands of the Education Minister's resignation, the Prime Minister has issued his first statement on the fiasco. In a post on social media platform X, PM Modi said that fast-track courts will be set up to take stringent action against individuals responsible for a paper leak. But the issue appears to have moved beyond the question of exam irregularities alone. The movement's spread beyond Delhi has given it a larger political meaning. The latest protests have put exposed frustration of youth who are witnessing limited job opportunities, deep educational inequalities, and what many perceive as an unresponsive system.